what daily life looked like before writing was invented. Imagine that every server on the planet goes down. Every book becomes dust. All of the labels, signs, and save buttons were removed. You've just gone back 300,000 years in 10 seconds. Now you find yourself in the long silence. Humans lived in a world of complete biological transparency before the first word was ever carved into clay. It didn't happen if you didn't see it. There was only now, not history. It was removed from the cosmos the instant you passed away if you didn't commit it to memory. We're going into the dark tonight. We are exploring the era of the superhumans, the ancestors who survived for millennia without a single written word, living a life of constant high-stakes suspense, where a single memory lapse meant the end of a bloodline. Number 1. The biological hard drive, memory or death. Initiate the sequence. While we rely on external drives, our ancestors used mnemonic architecture. Archaeologists studying indigenous cultures found that they could memorize the locations of over 1,500 different plant species and their specific medicinal uses. Imagine being the person responsible for the tribe's survival. You have to memorize songlines, verbal maps that use landmarks and star positions to find water in a desert 500 miles wide. If you forget a single verse, your family dies of thirst. There was no looking it up. Life was a 24/7 high-stakes memory game where the cloud was made of neurons, and a single brain injury could delete 1,000 years of ancestral wisdom. Number 2. The invisible law justice by reputation. Observe the social web. In a world without written contracts, your word was literally your life. Data from early civilizations shows that pre-literate societies relied on public witnessing. If you traded a flint knife for 3 furs, you did it in front of the whole tribe. Why? Because the tribe was the ledger. If you lied later, you weren't just breaking a deal, you were attacking the collective memory of the group. The suspense was psychological. You were constantly being watched and judged. Without a Bill of Rights, the only law was the social mirror. If your reflection in that mirror turned sour, you were exiled. And in the Stone Age, exile was a slow-motion death sentence. Number 3. Sensory literacy. Analyze the terrain. We read letters, they read textures. To a human 40,000 years ago, a bent blade of grass was a paragraph. A specific scent on the wind was a warning label. Studies of modern tracking tribes show they can identify the weight, sex, and health of an animal just by the depth and angle of a hoofprint. This was their internet. They were constantly downloading real-time data from the environment. The tension was visceral. A sudden silence from the birds wasn't just quiet, it was a loud alarm that a predator was within 50 yards. They lived in a world of invisible signals that we have become blind to. Number 4. The tribal dialect wall. Listen to the friction. Without writing to standardize speech, languages mutated at a terrifying speed. 2 tribes living just 50 miles apart could speak languages as different as English and Chinese. Meeting a stranger was a pulse-pounding mystery. You couldn't show a passport. You had to use costume literacy, reading the specific shells, feathers, or ochre paint on their skin to guess their intent. One wrong hand gesture could be interpreted as a declaration of war. Every first contact was a high-wire act of diplomacy where the stakes were either a new trade partner or a brutal ambush in the dark. Number 5. The shaman's monopoly. Enter the ritual. Because knowledge wasn't written down, it was hoarded. This created the first true power hierarchy. Archaeological sites like Göbekli Tepe, built 11,000 years ago, show that humans were organizing around massive, mysterious monuments before they even had farms. The shamans were the keepers of the database. They knew the movements of the stars, the first calendar, and the secrets of hallucinogenic plants. Since you couldn't verify their data in a book, they had absolute control over the tribe's reality. They didn't just tell stories, they controlled the truth. This created a society fueled by existential suspense. You lived in a world where the sun might not rise unless the shaman performed the correct code. Number 6. The tally of fear. Examine the artifact. The first writing wasn't a poem about love, it was a balance sheet. Look at the Ishango bone or the Lebo bone, primitive tally sticks from 20,000 plus years ago. As tribes grew into thousands, the human brain couldn't keep track of who owed what. The suspense of the Great Transition was the fear of being cheated. We didn't invent writing because we were smart. We invented it because we stopped trusting each other. The moment we started scratching marks into clay to count grain and sheep, the era of total trust ended. We gained accuracy, but we lost the communal bond that held us together for 300,000 years. Number 7. The cave's ghost signal. Face the darkness. Why would a mother and child crawl into the pitch-black depths of the Chauvet cave to leave a handprint? The real insight. These weren't just decorations, they were trans-temporal messages. They knew their voices would fade. They knew their names would be forgotten. Those handprints were a desperate hack against the Great Amnesia. It was the first time humans tried to save their presence in a world that was constantly refreshing. The suspense is in the realization, when you look at that handprint, you are looking at a person who was terrified of being deleted. Number 8. The cognitive trade. Off. Witness the final cost. When writing took over, the human brain physically changed. Neuroscientists have found that literate brains have different structures than oral brains. The final reveal. We traded presence for persistence. Number 9. The night of the living myth. Ignite the fire. Imagine a world where there are no fictional stories. In a pre-literate society, if a story was told, it was truth. The real data anthropologists have found that oral traditions often contain buried memories of actual geological catastrophes. For example, some Australian Aboriginal groups have stories of the coastline changing that date back 7,000 to 10,000 years, passed down perfectly without a single written word. The tension every night was a psychological battle. Number 10. The genetic library. Scan the skin. Without writing, the human body itself became the canvas of information. We're talking about scarification and tattoos as a high-stakes filing system. Archaeologists found the Ötzi the Iceman mummy 5,300 years old with 61 tattoos. These weren't random art. Many were placed exactly on acupuncture points used to treat his specific joint pain and stomach issues. Your body was your resume and your medical record. A specific scar on a warrior's chest wasn't just a wound, it was a paragraph describing a battle. A certain pattern of beads or ink on a woman's arm told the story of her lineage and her skills. If you met a stranger, you didn't ask for their ID, you read their skin. The tension was in the permanence. You couldn't edit your history. If you committed a cowardly act or failed the tribe, it was etched into your flesh for everyone to see until the day you were buried. You carried your failures and your triumphs on your skin like a walking billboard of your worth. If this journey into the long silence gave you chills, hit that like button. It's the modern way of leaving your handprint on the wall. And if you want to keep uncovering the hidden scripts of human history, subscribe and turn on notifications. Don't let these stories slip back into the void. Stay curious. The past is still watching.